Hello, once again, this is Antonio. Sometimes people just need awards when they walk into prison. Like some people do accidental deaths and they still carry a prison sentence. I understand. But some people just need awards just to put in their cell that they need to be forced to look at every day for some of the crimes that they just put on their backs. What happened? A teenager was supposed to testify against a suspect and he did a murder for hire where he hired three guys that was sloppy criminals. I don't know how much he gave them. So the teenager life was cut short. Life cut short, and the criminals' life continues, but it may continue behind bars. So let's go ahead and talk about, you know, let's give a little hindsight and talk about what actually happened. All right. Three suspects carry out a contract killing of teen to prevent testimony, DOJ says. Let's put them on full mask. Who gonna snitch first? I wonder. Who got the snitch in the eyes? I don't think old Red over there gonna snitch. You see the one on the left, his lips are already crusty. He ready to talk. He ain't gonna stand on business. He definitely gonna tell. Tell, go to jail. Don't forget your underwear. All right. So Brooksville, Florida, three men, four men technically, because the person that hired them to do the killing too. So, three Florida men are charged with carrying out a contract killing of a 17-year-old high school student to keep her from testifying in a sexual assault case against one of them. Lenard White is accused of hiring Keshawn Woods and Sheldon Robinson to murder Isabella Scavelli after she and her mother went to authorities in February to report in February she had been assaulted. So the Hernando County Sheriff alleged during a Thursday press conference that White found them through social media, offering $5,000 to anyone willing to help him with the cleanup job. All right, a cleanup job.
You dream, you plan, you work every hour, every day, every
I thought it
night.
was four.
There
I
is no such
apologize. It's
thing.
three.
She was a good kid with a very bright future, and to see her life cut short is heart wrenching to say the least.
So let's get this right. Let's get this right. So you already then assaulted this girl. You took her innocence, and then you turned around and hired two dunces to do the job. Authorities say Robinson and Woods went to the teen's home and fought the following day and knocked on the door. When it opened, they allegedly fired a barrage of gunshots into the home. The teen was hit by four bullets and she died. Her mother was seriously wounded but survived. If convicted on the federal counts, including murder for hire, the three suspects would end would each face mandatory life sentences or federal death penalty. You got to be the dumbest criminals in the world. Y'all don't know. Y'all ain't watch enough TV to know that you're supposed to do something different, like do it away from the home. Just dumb criminals. But anyways, I digress. Let's carry on.
We'll go ahead and take questions.
All right, good morning. Thank you all for coming. I'm Hernando County Sheriff Al Nienhuis. We're going to be talking about a very significant case that's been going on for several months. And speaking today, in addition to myself, is going to be the United States Attorney for the Middle District, Roger Handberg. He's immediately to my right, and ATF Special Agent in Charge, Kirk Howard. He'll be speaking after the U.S. Attorney. We also have here FDLE Special Agent in Charge Mark Brutnell.
How does the best basketball player of all time make more money in his retirement?
There he is right there. And our Chief Assistant State Attorney for the 5th Judicial Circuit, Walter Forgy. He's right here to my immediate left. Our State Attorney couldn't be here this morning because of other obligations. A couple ground rules and give you some information to maybe avoid some questions in the future. You know, normally I will hold up photographs, but since this is really a case that the U.S. Attorney is prosecuting, they typically don't do that during press conferences. So what we're going to do is have mugshots available at the conclusion. We'll send them out via media alert or incorporate them into a recorded version of this press conference. Also, most of you know in Florida, we have pretty strict laws when it comes to releasing victim information. We have a constitutional amendment, and we also have some pretty strict state statutes with regard to releasing the identities of victims of sexual battery. So we're going to be very general when we talk about our victims in this particular case for that reason, even though this is a very high-profile case. I do want to talk about investigations in general, and I think the U.S. Attorney will touch on this as well. These investigations, when done right, take a considerable amount of time. You have numerous witnesses, you have a lot of evidence, both digital and physical evidence that has to be looked at, a lot of witnesses to talk to, and oftentimes we get criticized for not giving family, friends, and the public more information about the status of the investigation, and there's good reason for that. One is the initial information is often, if not usually, wrong, and we certainly don't want to give out misinformation, and we don't want to give it out if it's inaccurate. Also, if we give information about what direction the agents or the investigation rather is heading, that information could get back to potential suspects. People we may not even know right now are suspects and may give them a defense when we do approach them as a suspect. And oftentimes our focus changes. Sometimes witnesses become suspects, sometimes even alleged victims become suspects. So we certainly don't want to put that information out there till we're sure who we're looking at and that we have a case that can be made, particularly a prosecutable case. And last and certainly not least, we have to worry about double jeopardy. If we move too quickly, if prosecution moves too quickly, and somebody is prosecuted and found not guilty, that precludes us from charging them and prosecuting them again for the same crime in the future. So they basically get a pass on that particular charge. And we, as we develop the suspect, we have to anticipate any reasonable defenses that they may have, because the last thing the prosecutors want to do is be surprised in courtroom about somebody's alibi or some other defense. And so that takes a lot of time to get that, working with law enforcement, working closely with the prosecutors in any particular case. So this particular case started back in February 6th of 2023, when a young woman came into the sheriff's office with a relative, and she alleged that she was sexually battered by a gentleman, Lenard White. He was born on 11/5 of '86, and he has several aliases. You can see he's known as Len, Mike Williams, and Stick. A day later, in the evening hours around 11:30, so on February 7th, our victim, as well as a relative, the same relative who accompanied our victim the previous day, answered the door, and they were met by two individuals who opened fire on both of these ladies. The victim, the 17-year-old, the one who alleged the sexual battery, was killed, and the other individual was seriously injured.
Listen, there's a good chance somebody's trying to hack your website right now. You gotta make sure.
Canines responded to the scene and tracked what they believed the path of this one of the suspects or both of the suspects, and they actually found a shoe in the vicinity of the crime scene, and later DNA was found on that to belong to Keshawn Woods. His date of birth is 2001. He's a documented Florida criminal gang member, and there are several state charges I'll talk about in a minute. Of course, in this particular case, White, the alleged suspect in the sexual battery, became a suspect immediately. Investigation revealed sometime later that White actually paid Sheldon Robinson about $10,000 to murder the 17-year-old. Robinson began asking for help via social media, saying that he had a cleanup job to do. And he said that $5,000 would be available to anybody who was willing to help him, as well as some cocaine. And here's a social media picture that Robinson put out soliciting help with this particular murder. Keshawn Woods became that person. Within hours of the actual incident, my detectives, before the federal government got involved, conducted a search warrant on Woods' house and found about $4,000 in cash, along with a gun and some illegal drugs. Investigation also found that Robinson was in possession of about $6,000, the rest of the $10,000, and it was found by Janet Williams hidden in her home. She was not forthcoming with law enforcement about that money. Search of the car that we later found out was used to get away from the crime found the other shoe that was matched the one that was found at the crime scene. Robinson's house was searched by my detectives, and ammo matching, meaning the brand and the caliber from the crime, was found in his house. And he has been detained since that time. He has trafficking in cocaine and felon in possession of ammunition, and he's been detained since February 9th of 2023. Another search warrant was much more recently conducted by Hernando County Sheriff's Office, working in conjunction with ATF, and a gun was found hidden in the backyard of Robinson's, I guess, yes, Robinson's house. And ballistics came back that it was actually used in the attack of the 17-year-old victim and her relative. Now, this is the tip of the iceberg, obviously, in this investigation. To say that our federal partners were a godsend would be an understatement. To say that FDLE, they're involved in probably in some way, shape, or form just about every serious case we do, if not helping us with the investigation specifically, their forensics people helping us analyze evidence and so forth. In this particular case, because of the seriousness of it, it didn't take a lot of convincing to get ATF involved and attack this particular case with a passion. My detective, Kyle Wilson, who's on the far right, who was assigned to this case, along with many, my right, your left, with many of my detectives, he took this case personally. When you have a 17-year-old and this particular victim, we have every reason to believe that she was not engaged in any high-risk activity. She was a good kid with a very bright future, and to see her life cut short is heart-wrenching, to say the least. Words can't even express it, and I know all of my people, along with FDLE, the state attorney's office, and the federal prosecutors, as well as ATF, all took this case very personally and took it with a passion. Countless interviews were done. Over 70, yes, 70 state and federal search warrants were done in this case. Obviously, a lot of forensic testing, and where ATF came in. They helped us with a tremendous amount of man hours with some of our analysis of digital evidence. Again, this case could not have been made this quickly, and I know a lot of people think 8 or 9 months is not very quick, but for a murder investigation this complicated, particularly it's a murder for hire, and we had individuals involved, and you'll hear a little bit more about that were actively trying to obstruct our investigation. 8 or 9 months is lightning speed. And as I said, it couldn't have been done without our federal partners. They have been, my detectives have said nothing but great things about them. So what I'm going to do, to give you an update again on the cases, the state charges. We have Lenard White. He's currently in jail, and he has been since February 15th of this year on sexual battery. So he's not been out and about, but you'll see he will have significant additional charges from the federal government. But he has on state charges where their state attorney agreed to charge him with sexual battery on February 15th. Keshawn Bernard Woods, again, a documented criminal gang member, and his current state charges are felon in possession of a firearm, possession of marijuana with intent to sell, possession of a new or legend drug, and possession of paraphernalia. He was recently arrested. He had been in jail for a little bit back in February, but he has since been arrested very recently on some of the federal charges. And then, of course, Sheldon Renard Robinson, he's been since February 9th, been in custody on state charges, possession of a possession of a weapon by a convicted felon and trafficking in cocaine. And he does have some criminal history as well with us. So with that being said, that kind of brings you to the point where the federal government got involved and some of the state charges. So I'm going to turn it over to the U.S. Attorney for the Middle District, Mr. Handberg, and he's going to tell you a little bit about their involvement in this particular case. So.
I'm going to show you a way to potentially make money by pairing Amazon with the power of AI.
Thank you very much, Sheriff, and thank you for all being here today. On February 6th, a 17-year-old child and one of her relatives went to the Hernando County Sheriff's Office to report a crime. When she went to the sheriff's office that day, she told investigators that she had been sexually assaulted by Lenard White. The next day at approximately 11:29 p.m., Sheldon Robinson and Keshawn Woods arrived at the child's home. They knocked at the door, and when the door was opened, a barrage of gunshots were fired. Robinson and Woods then fled, first on foot, later by car. A relative who was there that night was struck by the gunfire but survived. The child did not. She was shot 4 times. The bullet that caused her death entered her lower left back area, suggesting that she was shot in the back as she was trying to run for cover. Robinson and Woods did not act on their own that night. They did so on behalf of Lenard White, the man who sexually assaulted the child and who paid Robinson and Woods approximately $10,000 to murder the child so that White could avoid prosecution. This shooting was a tragic event. Ever since I heard about the shooting and the murder, my heart has been with the victims. I have kept them, their families, their friends, and this community in my thoughts and prayers. I am here today to announce that 4 defendants have now been charged in federal court in connection with the murder for hire conspiracy and for the attempted cover-up of this crime. Last week, a federal grand jury sitting in Tampa, Florida, indicted Lenard White, Sheldon Robinson, Keshawn Woods, and Robinson's mother, Janet Williams. The indictment contains 13 counts. White, Robinson, and Woods are each charged with 1 count of conspiracy to commit murder for hire, 1 count of murder for hire, and 2 counts of using a firearm during a crime of violence. White and Robinson also are charged with conspiring to possess with intent to distribute controlled substances, tampering with a witness, and obstruction of justice. Robinson also is charged with being a felon in possession of a firearm, and Janet Williams is charged with 3 counts of making a false statement to a special agent of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. This case is pending in federal court in Tampa. Woods and Williams had their initial appearances in federal court last Friday, and White and Robinson will have their initial appearances on November 9th. Woods has been ordered to be held in custody pending trial, and we will be seeking to have White and Robinson also held in pretrial detention. One of the people who's up here with us on the far side over here is the prosecutor on the case from my office, Assistant United States Attorney Diego Navas, and he's done an outstanding job on this case working with our law enforcement partners. 9 months may sound like a long time to work on an investigation, but it is not, especially for a case involving a murder for hire conspiracy and efforts by some of the conspirators to obstruct the investigation and tamper with witnesses. The investigation in this case was quickly done, but it was comprehensively done. Deputies from the Hernando County Sheriff's Office started working on this investigation immediately after the murder occurred. They worked long hours that night, work that continued until the grand jury returned its indictment last week. Working side by side with their partners at ATF and the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, the investigative agencies on this case have done an incredible amount of work during that 9 months. They've executed over 70, as you heard the sheriff say, that's 70, federal and state search warrants. They've interviewed witnesses. They've collected and analyzed DNA. They've reviewed text messages, phone calls, cell site location data, video and audio recordings, and social media posts. Murder investigations are never easy. In this case, several of the defendants undertook efforts to conceal their involvement and obstruct the investigation. White's effort at concealment started immediately. On the same day that the minor victim reported White's sexual assault to the sheriff's office, White went on an unplanned and spontaneous trip to Georgia in an effort to create an alibi defense to avoid prosecution. These efforts at concealment continued after the murder investigation had started. This included efforts to hide the firearm that was the murder weapon in this case, and to have Robinson's mother, Janet Williams, lie to an ATF special agent about whether she had seen her son with a firearm and whether her son had any money in her residence. But the investigative agencies on this case were not deterred by any of these efforts to obstruct the investigation. The investigation conducted by these 3 agencies that you see before you has been thorough and meticulous. The investigators on this case have methodically collected and reviewed the evidence and followed up on each and every lead. Every step of the way, the investigators have sought to ensure that those who are criminally responsible will be held accountable.
Movavi Black Friday and Cyber Monday sale is on the way. Bring any creative idea to life.
This type of excellent work is nothing new for these 3 agencies. Each of the agencies you see before you is committed to doing justice for victims, to holding perpetrators accountable for crimes, and to preventing any acts of violence from occurring in this community. As the United States Attorney for the Middle District of Florida, I have the privilege of serving as the Chief Federal Law Enforcement Officer for 35 counties in this state. In addition to prosecuting cases in federal court, my office partners with sheriff's offices, police departments, state attorneys, and state and federal law enforcement agencies so that we can work together to identify the most pressing violent crime problems in our community and develop comprehensive solutions to address them. We call this our Project Safe Neighborhood strategy. Launched in 2001, Project Safe Neighborhoods is built on several core principles: fostering trust and legitimacy in our communities, supporting community-based organizations that help prevent violence from occurring in the first place, setting focused and strategic enforcement priorities, and measuring the results of our success in our efforts. The federal indictment in this case is a perfect example of what the close coordination and teamwork called for by Project Safe Neighborhoods will yield. A methodical investigation resulting in timely charges that will serve to protect the community, promote public safety, reduce violent crime, do justice for victims, and hold the perpetrators accountable for their offenses. The allegations contained in the indictment and in the detention memorandum that has been filed by my office in federal court, which I've summarized here today, well, they're just that, they're allegations. And White, Robinson, Woods, and Williams are presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty. The federal charges in this case are serious. If convicted, White, Robinson, and Woods are facing a mandatory term of life in federal prison, and Williams is facing up to 15 years in federal prison. I want to again commend the Hernando County Sheriff's Office, ATF, and FDLE for their excellent work on this case. And I want to commend State Attorney Bill Gladson and his office for their partnership.
Now think about it. As a mom, you want to do all that you can for your son, but your son was an alleged R word, because you know you can't say that word on YouTube. He committed alleged SA, right? So instead of telling the truth, you want to keep it real because you don't snitch. If my son committed such a heinous crime and I had proof he did it, give me a microphone because I'm singing like a canary. But let's carry on.
The State Attorney's Office and my office, we take a team approach to prosecution here in Hernando County. Our offices work together to find the appropriate court to prosecute violent crime cases so that we can ensure that we are doing everything that we can to reduce violent crime in Hernando County. Let this be a message to anyone who seeks to commit a violent crime or firearm offense in this community. As you can see from the law enforcement agencies here today, you will be investigated, and these agencies will use every lawful tool at their disposal to hold you accountable. And if you have committed a violation of federal law, the United States Attorney's Office will pursue prosecution in federal court. We are all united together in our mission to keep this community safe. And with that, I'm going to turn the podium over to ATF Special Agent in Charge, Kirk Howard.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kirk Howard. I'm the ATF Special Agent in Charge for the Tampa Field Division. I am proud to represent the federal law enforcement community and join the United States Attorney, the Hernando County Sheriff, and others before you this morning, FDLE and the State's Attorney's Office. ATF agents, along with the Hernando County Sheriff's Office deputies, located and arrested Keshawn Woods and Janet Williams in Brooksville last week. Both arrest operations went as planned and without incident. Our main suspects are now all in custody. We can't get into the operational details of the case, but it is because it is still active. But I'd like to share a little of ATF's crime gun intelligence tools this team has at its disposal. The National Integrated Ballistics Information Network, or NIBIN, is a program that can generate investigative leads by digitally analyzing and comparing spent cartridge casings from seemingly unrelated crime scenes. E-Trace is a tool designed to help investigators quickly identify who made a particular firearm, who bought it, and how it may have ended up in a crime scene. We also have access to Touch DNA, a powerful forensic tool that analyzes trace samples of biological material left on evidence like firearms, ammunition, and clothing after being casually handled.
While both NetSuite and QuickBooks offer software designed to help businesses manage their accounting process,
And most important capability we have is a relentless determination of the men and women of the Hernando County Sheriff's Office, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, State's Attorney's Office, and the United States Attorney's Office. Since day one, we've shared an ironclad commitment to public safety by doing everything we can to interdict and arrest the violent individuals responsible for the murder of this innocent young lady. For the last 9 months, we've embraced the public's interest in this investigation. Residents and business owners have come forward with information, offering potential pieces of the puzzle. Violent criminals thrive on society's apathy and callousness. So I hope these calls, texts, and emails continue to flow into any of the agencies you see here. And we're not stopping. This team will continue to turn over every stone and follow the facts wherever they lead, despite the defendant's complex attempts to conceal and obscure the truth, and bring much-needed closure to the grieving community. This murder was senseless, a violent crime that must be answered for, and today is a huge step in that direction. I'd like to compliment the lead detective from the Hernando County Sheriff's Department, Special Agent Yannick Delorius from our office, on the great work that they have done and continue to do on this investigation. With that, I'll turn this back over to the Sheriff.
Thank you, sir. We'll answer a couple questions, but just to reiterate, my detectives were saying from day one that our relationship with the state attorney is always great, and it continued in this case. But ATF, they couldn't be more complimentary of the work that ATF did. And when ATF presented it to the U.S. Attorney's Office, they could not be more complimentary about how aggressively they took on this case and made these charges come to fruition. So with that being said, I'll be happy to answer any questions I'm able to, or some of my counterparts from the U.S. Attorney's Office or ATF would also be willing to entertain questions. So.
Just a horrible situation. Can you give a sense of how this victim knew White?
How this what?
How the victim and White knew each other?
I don't want to get into a whole lot of, obviously they knew each other. It was not, I would say it was not a random sexual battery, you know, where they didn't know each other, but I'm not going to elaborate any more about how they knew each other.
Sheriff, when the victim came to the sheriff's office to report the crime, were they worried about their safety going back home? And if so, was anything talked about?
I don't know if I was specifically told that, but I don't think I've ever met a victim of a legitimate sexual battery that was not concerned for their safety going forward. So I think that's a fair guess that they were concerned, especially knowing this suspect's history and so forth. And obviously the fact that he was apparently willing to spend $10,000 to shut her up, I'm sure that he had a reputation that somebody to be concerned about.
Did you work with the victim's family throughout the investigation, and how are they doing now? Is the mother recovered?
Well, again, we're not going to talk about specifics about individuals and their relationships, but I will tell you the family in general obviously has been very frustrated with how long it's taken, and we're frustrated too. We understand that. Those things, they move. Sometimes it seems as at a snail's pace, but we've been assuring them that this case was priority one for us, and we have a lot going on in the sheriff's office, but hopefully with what happened today, they realized how much work has been done over the last 9 months to get justice for this young lady. So.
And just to make sure I have it right, so the ammo matching crime was found at Robinson's house, and then the recent search warrant showed that the gun that was used during the crime was also found in the backyard, also at Robinson's house.
I'm sorry, say that again now?
So the ammo that was
Yes.
used was found at Robinson's house, and then the gun that
Well,
was used.
I think there might have been, because I think they're Yes, I'm not, the type of ammo that was originally found at the house in the search warrant was not spent. It was the same caliber and manufacturer of, so that was early on, and obviously that's not enough necessarily to develop probable cause, but it certainly did not eliminate that type of ammunition from, or eliminate that person as a possible suspect. If anything, it added a little bit to it at that point in the investigation, that we were probably on the right track.
And then when you went back, you found the gun in the backyard that matched what would have been used?
Yeah, and that was forensically by ATF, and they, I think they, Detective Wilson, I think they drove it up like that day or the next day to Atlanta, right? ATF did. That shows how serious they were. They got in the car and drove it to Atlanta for it to be tested, because we had strong suspicions that it was a weapon used in the commission of this crime. And so, again, ATF was as serious about this as we were. And that's when ATF in Atlanta apparently did the analysis on that particular gun and linked it to the crime.
And you already touched on it, but you know, obviously any sort of murder or anything like this, you guys always tackle really seriously. But what did it mean for you guys that it was a 17-year-old girl?
Well, again, nobody deserves to be a victim of murder, period. Sometimes it can be a little bit frustrating for law enforcement when people intentionally put themselves into high-risk lifestyles and maybe don't use good crime prevention techniques when it comes to this type of crime. That's not the case here. This is, as I said, a young lady who had, by all accounts, a very bright future, was doing things to set herself up for a bright future, doing the right things, making the right decisions. And so I think that we work hard on all of our serious crimes, very hard. My detectives, I say all the time, I'll put them up against anybody, and even on those murders where there is high-risk activity involved, they'll work straight through the night to get them done. But it does add a little bit more, maybe a tiny bit more passion to it when it is a true victim. And that's, as far as we know, everything we've seen, every rock we uncovered, this was a true victim of sexual battery and murder. So, all right.
Sheriff.
Yes, sir.
White's post on social media that you referred to, soliciting for the murder.
I don't think, I think that might have been, I don't know if that was White. I don't think that was White. I think that was one of the co-conspirators, if I'm not mistaken.
Step into Wix Studio, the new web creation platform built for
Yeah, Sheldon Robinson. That was Sheldon Robinson who put that up.
Which social media was that, and was it just publicly on his page?
That I don't know, and I don't know if I could release it, but I don't have that information anyway. It was some social media platform. I don't know which one.
Have you ever seen anything like that where somebody?
Well, again, I think this is conjecture on my part. He was kind of apparently thinking that maybe he was being a little coy by saying a cleanup job, but a cleanup job for $10,000, and especially when you're showing a large sum of money and cocaine, it's probably not going to be cleaning somebody's house. It's going to be something that's going to have criminal intent involved. So I don't know, that may come out as we get more into the investigation and into the trial phase and so forth, but right now I don't have that information.
Sheriff, this might be for the attorneys, but as far as the punishment goes, was the capital punishment considered, or is it?
I'll have to leave that up to the U.S. Attorney.
The decision on capital punishment has not been filed with the court yet. That will happen at some point in connection with this case, because it is a death-eligible case, but we don't have any further information. That decision will be made by the...
Would that be for all three defendants possibly, or just for the ones who fired the weapons?
So 3 of the 4 are potentially eligible for that penalty, and there'll be more information about that in the court docket at some point in the future.
Sheriff, do you worry that a case like this could prevent other victims from coming forward? And is there any kind of protection that the Sheriff's Office can offer people in the future? Or
well, to say we're concerned about the safety of victims and witnesses is an understatement. And actually, it was kind of mentioned by the ATF special agent in charge. that we hope more information will come out on this particular case, because now that these individuals are in jail, and there's probably a good chance they're not going to get out in the next decade or two. Hopefully people that may have been solicited or whatever, we don't know what information we might find. So we want to encourage the listeners out there that if they have any information on this particular case that has not been presented to law enforcement, we would hope that they would come forward, because it will do nothing but make our case stronger. The second point there is that the best tool we have is justice. And hopefully people will think that if you do something like this, you are going to be aggressively investigated and prosecuted, particularly if it's something where there's a murder for hire, and that we're going to do everything to get those people into custody. As you see, a couple of these individuals were in custody fairly early and have been in custody the entire time, and that helps make them safe. But if we feel that there's a legitimate safety risk, we'll do whatever we can. Obviously we're not afraid of talking to the federal government, and federal government has a lot of resources to keep people safe in addition to what we can provide. And we're certainly would look into that in a case like this, because these are obviously people that, if true, if convicted, they are not scared to use force to prevent prosecution, up to and including murder. So we're going to do everything we can to keep any witnesses that come forward safe. So,
can I join in on that?
Sure.
Sure. And I think the indictment in this case, I think, will give you an indication of what our approach has been on this case, which is this case has our complete attention at the United States Attorney's Office and ATF. And if you heard what I said about following up on every lead, one of the things we did in this case was we not only charged individuals with a murder for hire conspiracy, but where we developed evidence about a conspiracy to possess with intent to distribute controlled substances, we charged that. When we developed evidence as to witness tampering, we charged that. When we developed evidence as to obstruction of justice, we charged that. I mean, this investigation has been comprehensive in every respect, and it started that way from the beginning with the sheriff's office. I mean, the sheriff in this case, I mean, set the tone that this was going to be a case where it was all hands on deck, and that's what the approach is. So my message to anybody who's affiliated with these individuals will be to not assume that this investigation is over. For purposes of public safety, we always continue with our investigations, and everyone should assume that we're going to continue to do going forward what we did in this case, which is to follow up on every lead, and if there's something that we can do in federal court to hold people accountable for the federal crimes that they've committed, we're going to do that.
And I'm sure.
So I'm gonna go ahead and end the video there. 4 people. I stand corrected. At first I said 4. Then I went back and I said 3. Now it's back to 4. Went and played jailhouse games. I think the mother should have never lied to a federal agent, because now she tricked herself off the street, potentially with a 15-year sentence by trying to protect a criminal that she birthed. I have no sympathy for none of these people that harmed this girl. I have no sympathy at all for the mother, because she tried to protect her son who harmed this girl. Please support this video. If you like this video and made it to this part, the more likes we get on this video, the more we'll be able to get this video throughout the YouTube universe. You can support this channel through Super Chat and Cash App. So this is Antonio with Team Tiggio. Please like, comment, subscribe. And once again, we will see you in the next video.